Hello and welcome to the ProDota 2 National Cup here on ProDota EN. We're going to start things off with my first game casted on 685 and USA's first game in the tournament against the undefeated Sweden. I'm Grandis V, and I'm going to be joined by More Age Please for the remainder of this series, and although unfortunately there's not any other series today, we'll have to see how this one plays out. Should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's my first 685 cast as well, and already we're seeing the virtues of the changes. Spectre first phase banned by the US side, and definitely some nice buffs directly to Spectre with the Desolate, and also some pseudo buffs with the Radiance and Drums both being buffed. Ember Spirit as well got a couple pseudo buffs, Drums, and Battle Fury reduced cost, so interesting to see that. I still wouldn't be surprised to see Alina picked up really early on. I feel like
Absolutely.
she's still very strong, but Queen of Pain and interesting Bat Rider taken out by Sweden.
Yeah, Lina and Windrunner, at least in my eyes, are probably some of the best mid-heroes available, but Spectre I do think is going to rise in popularity to be one of the most common safe lane farmers right now. Even before
Right.
the changes, she was very good and probably a little bit underutilized, and I think the shadow buffs is all that she really needed to be put into vogue. As far as the first picks here, we're going to see Winter Wyvern and Dazzle picked up.
Yeah, so not too much surprise there. Of course, a small nerf there to Wyvern on the ultimate. And it actually could be a pretty significant one. You can still cast the Winter's Curse on a BKB target, but other BKB heroes around him will not be drawn into the curse. So interesting to note there. But either way, yeah, Dazzle's been really favored heavily throughout the tournament. Ogre going to be picked up here. Should be some early aggression coming out. Another buff to his base armor.
In addition to that base armor buff, a massive buff to Bloodlust,
Yeah.
adding an extra 10 attack speed, I believe, per level, or something along those lines. And then he can also apply it to towers, which, although something that I haven't seen before, should prove to be pretty interesting and graphically looks very cool. Ogre was another one of those supports that I'd say was probably a little underutilized, and
Yeah.
it's always nice to see teams experimenting, especially early on in the patch. Although I'd expect Ogre to probably not be first or second pick as the patch progresses.
Yeah, so we'll see if maybe they put him in like an aggressive duo for Sweden, but generally there's just a good support duo here in a defensive dry. A lot of poke there with the Arctic Burn and probably an Orb of Venom from the Ogre to be able to chase him down. Shadow Fiend not touched at all in the changes, so no surprise to see that picked up here for the US side.
Yeah, even though Shadow Fiend himself wasn't directly touched, Medallion nerfs and Solar Crest nerfs are going to mean that the minus armor from the Dazzle and Shadow Fiend are going to be a little bit more desirable to have on your team and are
Sure.
still very potent heroes. In fact, Dazzle getting buffed where I don't think he needed to be at all. Poison Touch, as far as the skill is concerned, was absolutely terrible, and you see Dazzle's very often avoiding it altogether, but the rest of the hero more than makes up for that fact, and he's in a really strong place right now. First pick Dazzle makes sense. As far as the bans are concerned, Huskar will be banned out by the Dire side, and Witch Doctor the ban coming out from USA. The Dazzle Huskar combination is scary enough to warrant the ban, even if it's not
Definitely.
the ideal pick.
Yeah, and it's a BSJ signature hero,
For
and
sure.
you'll definitely see them start to target him with bans. He's considered definitely a good player, but one with a limited hero pool. PL with a little bit of a nerf, still think he's more than strong enough to pick up, so maybe we see that ban come out. But for now, for the US side, they're going to take out the Witch Doctor here. You spoke about the minus armor strat. I'd be interesting to see a one position CK for the US. I highly doubt it does come out, but the change to the critical strike there may rear its head.
I'd love to see it. I think Chaos Knight is probably still pretty bad in
Yeah.
all honesty,
Yeah.
but maybe IOCK in the second pick stage could be a bit of a change of pace. I'm not sure how much these teams are willing to experiment since the patch wasn't as big as the
Right.
previous changes in 684. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. As far as this next ban coming out from the Dire side. There's not really anything telling. I think Earthshaker would be a reasonable ban, although Dazzle Earthshaker is maybe a bit low on the damage side. They have a mass amount of utility, and they're going to fall back on another one of BSJ's comfort heroes. They'll ban out the Slug.
Yeah, so definitely warranted there, and it's going to make things harder for the U.S. Once BSJ is out of his comfort zone. He's very good on the Huskar, the Slark, the PL. So we'll definitely see at least two of those for now removed from the pool. We're going to see probably the first core come out now for Team Sweden. Something to note, they are 2-0 in terms of their series, so 4-0 in terms of games thus far. Really have looked like the powerhouse in this group. And it's the first series, as Grandis mentioned, for the U.S. So they can look to make a splash here as Romania and Greece have yet to win a Series 2-0.
Well, as far as this next pickup for the Dire side, I'm really not sure what they're going to settle on. I think a Windrunner here would be reasonable against the Shadow Fiend. The matchup isn't
Sure.
perfect, of course, but it's also not bad and could work pretty nicely for them. As far as powerful heroes that are still available, but we really don't know what these teams are considering. What everybody gets out of the patch notes and what everybody wants to try out is completely different from day to day and from team to team.
Yeah, we'll see what they combo up with the Wyvern Ogre Magi. Could be they will pick up the Darkseer for now. Very small nerf with a couple base into hidden, so can't spam just quite as much in the off lane, but still very stable laner. Of course, the Vacuum into Winter's Curse, a big wombo combo there. I was gonna say I wouldn't be too surprised to see an anti-mage come out for the Dire side to combo up with the Ogre Wyvern. Maybe even a PA. Bloodlust obviously pretty good on the PA. A little bit of a buff to the PA as well, and Wyvern combos up decently well. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that, but definitely much later in the draft, probably fifth pick if it does end up coming out.
Yeah, well, as far as for Stratas here, I think... Ooh, alright, never mind, hold that thought. We have a Slardar pick for their team. Potentially an off-lane Slardar, maybe a Slardar Dazzle in the pressure lane for the USA side. Slardar did get recently changed. His sprint is now more consistent when it
Yeah.
comes to lower cooldown, although it is slightly lower in duration. Also giving phased movement allows Slardar to be played in a utility role a lot easier, and it looks like they are going to invest very heavily into the minus armor strategy. Although Ogre Magi, Darkseer, and to a lesser extent Winter Wyvern are a little bit tanky when it comes to their armor, not to this extent when you have Weave, when you have
Yeah.
Amp, when you have Presence of the Dark Lord, and a potential Medallion coming out from the Dazzle too. It gets to the realm of being ridiculous, and since Medallion is half effective on Roshan, it does make picking up Amp damage from the Slardar a lot more attractive since you can still achieve the same quick
Right.
Roshes that we saw last patch.
Yeah, at this point, I would expect it to be BSJ in the safe lane, but as you mentioned, it's definitely a viable off laner too, especially if you pair it up with something like the Dazzle. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see that laning configuration, as you mentioned. At this point, I think it's going to be BSJ. This is one
Probably.
of the heroes that he doesn't play too much, but he is pretty comfortable. I've seen him run it on stream quite a bit. So we'll see if Sweden end up picking up their mid laner here and being that two cores are shown from the US, or maybe they opt for that one position.
And even after recent nerfs, Alina could be reasonable, or Gyrocopter too. He did get his Rocket Barrage nerfed a little bit, especially at early levels, is going to hurt. But Call Down is mostly untouched, although there is potentially going to be two BKBs on the field with Shadow Fiend and Slardar. So the missile slow might be relevant this game.
Right.
Still, I think Gyrocopter is powerful enough, especially in combination with Darkseer and Winter Wyvern, to warrant the pick. It is still a very strong carry.
Yeah, definitely the buff's really not enough to deter teams from picking him up, and it's even a little bit surprising to see him make it this deep into the draft, but no real surprise there for them to pick him up. Definitely the Grave not too bad against the Gyro, though, on the other side, so they have ways to deal with him thus far, and it looks like the US will actually pick up the AM for himself, so looks like your prediction was correct in terms of the Slardar probably not being towards that safe lane. We'll see if they put him in a pure support or run him in the dual off lane, which is probably the more likely of the two scenarios.
Yeah, I prefer the dual offlane too, as you kind of alluded towards. Slardar as a hero, he doesn't need a lot. As soon as you have Blink Dagger and levels, you can contribute a mass amount of utility to the team with just that raw initiation, kind of similar to a Centaur, with some minus armor thrown in. But yeah, we'll have to see how they play. It should be interesting. Slardar is one of those heroes that's always been kind of a fringe pick, and every time there's a new patch, teams experiment with him, and generally he falls out, but maybe this is time for Slardar to start showing up more frequently.
Yeah.
Rubik will be the last ban, and it looks like it's expected to be an offlane dual lane, or at the very least just an offlane Slardar. Windrunner is going to be the ban coming out from the
Yeah,
USA.
it's a very wise ban from the US. As soon as the anti-mage came out, I kind of expected that mid laner to come out for the Sweden side. It's a very good pick early on versus the AM. If you land a Shackle with a focus fire up, he's dead every single time. Very interesting pick coming out for presumably what is the mid lane for Sweden. It's going to be the Tiny here. Nice buff up to his base intelligence, so allows him to get a couple more combos off there. Not sure if it makes him enough to be viable without the IO, but it seems like that's remained to be seen.
In general, I think Tiny is viable without the IO. The extra stats make it possible for Tiny to get his full combination off from level 2, as long as he has one Iron Branch, and even without the Iron Branch, can get his full combo off at level 3. So even an underfarmed and under-level Tiny can still contribute, but I'm not sure if this is the game for it. Tiny is very allergic to minus armor, and they have a mass amount of that on the enemy team. Anti-Mage's mana burn could be relevant inside these fights, as Tiny kind of needs to hold on to every midget of mana that he has. And against the Dazzle, Avalanche Toss isn't going to be super reliable unless he's killing off the Dazzle himself, but even then, if they have Vision of the Tiny beforehand, could get a preemptive Grave off. So it's not going to be the easiest of games for the Tiny. I love the hero, and I'm interested to see how it's played, but it is not without its downsides. I think this is probably a risky pick.
Yeah, so 4 positions probably here for the US side. I still don't mind Lena. I think the Tusk is still fairly strong. I don't really think they nerfed him nearly enough for him to be unpickable, especially this late. Tusk Slardar, not a bad dual off lane, but other than that, Witch Doctor they banned out themselves, so it'll be interesting to see. Maybe they pick up something with Sustain. Venge got a little bit of a buff, at least in terms of her move speed. I don't know if she'll be picked up here, but that also adds to that minus armor theme of the lineup here. So we'll see what they opt for. Cut still 20 seconds of reserve time.
Yep, I'd probably expect something like a Shaker here for the USA side, but there's so many different picks that could in theory work for them. Maybe even a support Lena, although the stun is a little bit weaker when it comes to damage. Instead, it's going to be a Jakiro, so we're going to see a whole lot of different heroes. Jakiro, as far as his changes, a little bit of extra damage on the dual breath, but nothing too huge. Still, I think Jakiro is a very reasonable pick when you have so many heroes that are going to be clumped up inside the fight, like Ogre, Darkseer, and Tiny, all need to be like right on top of you, or at least close by.
The attack slow is nice against the Ogre Magi to mitigate that bloodlust, as you mentioned. Also against Tiny, attack slow is, of course, very effective, at least early on in the game. But I really don't know if Jakiro was the pick here. I still kind of feel like he's a little bit trashed here, but we'll see if it ends up working out. I don't feel like he's the hero that can babysit Anti-Mage alone, so maybe that's what I worry. But we'll see if it ends up being the Jakiro Slardar off lane with Irony or Hex sitting on BSJ in the safe lane.
Yeah, well, we should be loading in just a second as soon as Winter Wyvern picks up our hero, and let's introduce our teams. On the dire side, ooh, something crashed. Hopefully that wasn't...
I got the same error. Later. GG Dota.
Is Dota dead? Do I need to restart?
I believe... Well, it died for me. Did you press OK yet? Download the update. Uh-oh. Ruh-roh.
This is not good.
So the draft was excellent, though, thus far. Looks like I'm downloading an update as well. But hopefully we weren't the only ones to disconnect.
I know Mike was saying that casters have disconnected at the start of games previously, but this update might throw a wrench into things.
Yeah, I would hope we're able to rejoin the lobby. But bear with us, guys. Reborn. Reborn, please.
My Dota hasn't started yet.
I got 30 seconds. I'll let you know if I
Well,
get
I
in
have
for you.
4, so we're getting there.
Loading in right now, so
It went up to 9 minutes. Okay,
only the one series for the today, guys. So hopefully we get it broadcasted to you without just audio, with some video included.
well, it's not like we can see the game either. Like,
Yeah. Just cast it from the mini map. Yeah, I'm back in, so it looks like everything should be kosher at this point.
why is it showing my desktop? That's not normal.
Currently looks like it's gonna be Locarn solo on the Slardar in the off lane for now, and both the Jakiro and the Dazzle currently gonna be babysitting towards that safe lane for BSJ. He's gonna be up against Eres Loco on the Darkseer for Sweden side. So BSJ, definitely one of the melee heroes who can sustain against Darkseer a little bit better than some of the alternatives. So for now, Dazzle sitting behind his SF mid lane. Looks like you're back in.
Yep, getting that way. And here we go.
Top lane, Arctic Burn going to go out onto Locarn. Just a little bit of poke from the Wyvern. No one else really going to close the distance. Bot lane, though, with the Ignite and the boots first onto Steph Style, looking to chase down the Jakiro. And I feel like Frozen could be dead here. Taken away with that Ignite. Little bit of duration there. And Ion Shell, still quite a bit. And the boots advantage to the Ogre, I feel like should be enough.
It's definitely not a comfortable situation to be the Jakiro here. A lot of damage coming out from the Ogre Magi, although I don't think they have an Orb of Venom between them.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. This is very chancy. I think Frozen is dead, although it is going to be pretty close.
Yeah, the one thing is Ignite is really, it's about to expire really soon. So perhaps in between an auto attack, he's able to get the salve off and get under the tower. But
Depends if he can get the distance away from Eris Loco from that Iron Shell.
right, so yeah, Jakiro really slow move speed early on. So BSJ gonna jump forward and they're actually gonna back off for it. But
Fair
a lot
enough.
of chip damage done, and he's only got the one tango on the salve left on the Jakiro, so it needs to be a little bit more passive in the lane here after. Either way, mid lane's looking to go pretty well for Slayer, despite really no support presence, as you would expect it to. SF versus a melee hero anytime should be an advantageous matchup.
Yeah, especially a Tiny. Tiny needs his levels before he can pressure the Shadow Fiend at all, although right now he does have the mana for the Avatos combo, and until he gets more experience up, it is going to be a lot harder for him to pull that kill through or even do anything up towards top. Stun going to go the way of Frigolite, but he's going to be fine. Winter Wyvern does have level 2 and has held his skill point, so even if worse comes to worse, that probably just means that Cold Embrace is forced to be skilled. Still, the Slaughter has found himself level 3 and now going to eat through the trees again. Frigolite will take a punch, but right now, though there's a couple of tense situations across the map, it doesn't look like we're in for any kills, really. Everybody's just happy to be farming, I guess with the exceptions being E-Skills. As soon as E-Skills does get about the level 5 to 8 mark, that's where this Burst Tiny really starts to pick up momentum. Maybe he can find some kills on the supports. Speaking of which, Dazzle, currently blocked up by the creeps, will get a heal onto himself and has the Jakiro coming around from the sidelines, so Stepstyle won't be able to pursue.
Yep, you're gonna have to back off the Ogre Magi. He's got great base regen though, so Steph's house should be just fine. With one tango ticking and another one in his pockets. Lokarn drops a deep ward and doesn't look like it's gonna be dewarded anytime soon. Frigolite has the lane ward, but hasn't been accompanied at all, of course, by the Ogre. So really, yeah, as you mentioned, gonna be a bit of a stagnant early game. No kill potential from either side.
Yeah, Slaughter is playing a bit of a dangerous game, but also worth noting, Slaughter has himself a Mango and a Salve, so more than sustained to stick in this lane. Although right now things are a bit dangerous as the lane's pushing out. He'll just try to skirt on the edge of that experience range. Ooh, bottom lane, again, the Dazzle's going to be caught out a bit. With the Liquid Fire applied to Stepstyle, I'm not sure if they can get this kill onto Irony, although Dazzle's still not sitting on level 2. No availability for the Shallow Grave.
Yeah, BSJ is starting to find some farm, but of course is being beaten out by Krilly thus far as Slaughter doing a lot of worse job at pressuring the AM as you'd expect him. Trading hits right now with Frigolite. Frigolite does not have the Cold Embrace, so needs to be a bit careful. But only the level 1 Slithering Crush so far for Lokarn, so not going to be able to bring him down.
For sure, and Winter Wyvern's about to get level 3, and at that point, Slaughter killing off the Winter Wyvern is going to be very difficult, and especially with no points in a bash. Maybe once level 6 comes out, but he's actually maxing sprint this game. Rotation mid by Stepstyle, looking to help out his Tiny in mid. If Ogre can get this full wrap, that'd be wonderful, but with an Observer Ward, spotting this out, or eventually we'll spot this out. This is almost impossible that this works out. For now, Shadow Fiend doesn't know exactly where the Ogre is, but I think the supports smell something's up. The Ogre has not yet shown himself. He's right on the edge of the vision, but now running in towards him. He's down on the low ground. They don't know he's here yet as the Dazzle's going to bump into the Darkseer. Surge Way will keep the Darkseer safe. Ogre is right around the corner. Will walk up to the high ground as he is completely outnumbered, but up towards top. Lokarn going to look for the stun. Can he find it? And it will connect onto Krilly. The Gyrocopter has no support around here, but Lokarn just has nothing else in the tank, so won't be able to get that kill. A couple of heroes dropping low, especially for the Dire side. Tiny, very low inside the mid lane, but was under no threat of dying. The supports weren't there.
Lokarn baits out the Rocket Barrage now, and Krilly has mana for one more, but perhaps if the Slaughter, knowing that no supports are nearby by virtue of his vision here, pops his Mango, he might be able to go in. Krilly, though, regenning up pretty quickly with the Tango now, so doubt he'll get a little bit over-aggressive.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they won't be able to kill with just the Slaughter, but now Dazzle's coming in from behind, too. It's not going to offer that much. It is only a level 1 Dazzle after all, and now the rotation, I believe, has been spotted out by this ward. And Irene is going to walk inside that vision, but minor possibility. I don't think it's going to end up happening. Ogre's still posturing very aggressive, but Stepstyle hasn't been able to find a good opportunity. Maybe this is the change, as Frozen's going to be pursued, slowed down by the Orb of Venom, as well as the Fire with the Iron Shell. This should be our first blood, drawn by the offlane, coming out from Sweden.
Yeah, no boots yet for that Jakiro. He does buy them out before dying, but definitely going to be able to chase him down there. Well played. Good rotation, knowing that as soon as the Dazzle leaves lane, that the Jakiro was vulnerable. So, first blood going Sweden's way, and they've looked good all tournament long.
Mid lane, the Shadow Fiend is having pretty much a free time. The Tiny, although he is getting a little bit of farm in return, is under no real pressure, and, well, he doesn't have any stacks up yet, but eventually he can start clearing through the jungle. Right now, with the way the Ogre is positioned, it will be a little bit hard. But, top lane, they're going to look for the kill onto Frigolene. He does not have Cold Embrace skilled yet, but does have that as an option for him, so even though he's going to drop low, is under no real threat of dying.
Yeah, Curly rotating in and Sprint amplifying the damage he takes. Slardar definitely having to back out their bot lane. Thunderrune's going to be secured by the Darkseer for E-skill. And they're going to back the Jakiro out as well. See if the Dazzle ends up rotating back to lane Irony. Just trying to secure Slardar some farm here. He can pick up his treads fairly soon if he's able to grab himself a couple of last hits, but up to this point, totally shut out 3 last hits to that Slardar. And Stepstyle, thinking about perhaps rotating once again towards the mid, with the Shadow Fiend has been farming the enemy jungle. So looking for stacks here, prepared for the Tiny, and really won't find much of any.
Still, it is a little bit of gold denied away from the enemy team, and eventually they'll want to get some stacks up for this Tiny, as E-skills would love to have his Blink Dagger as soon as possible. But with the absence of the Shadow Fiend, he's been able to farm in lane pretty effectively, as his treads, has his bottle, flying out to him on the courier, and once he has that Blink, he's an absolute menace. He has almost maxed out into both Avalanche and Toss, and at that point he'll be able to kill off heroes 100 to 0 at about a threshold of 600 to 700 HP, depending on if he's able to right-click off Lucaran. Going to take a lot of damage up towards the top, but he does have the Dazzle behind him. Although they didn't start out this way, the Slardar at level 5 is very comfortable up in this top lane to survive, although maybe not for long, as they are going to rotate in Steph style.
Yeah, he's going to wrap around, and the call down going to be dropped. It's going to connect onto 2. First missile, second missile should finish off the Slardar. Irony slowed the rotation from the Jakiro, perhaps too late. One last right click from the Wyvern, going to bring down the Dazzle as well. And the first use of call down is a fruitful one. 2 kills in this tri-lane, or effective tri-lane for now, for the Sweden side.
Across the board, that's going to be a 3-for-0 advantage for Sweden, as especially the Ogre has been involved in a lot of these skirmishes. After getting that first blood kill, the Darkseer is farming up a swarm. Level 7 on the Darkseer with both Arcanes and Soaring running. Slowco can constantly keep these Ion Shells flowing. Although the Anti-Mage is not going to die to this and can sustain pretty well, it's also not going to stop the Darkseer from farming in its entirety. Double Ion Shell is pretty hard to deny up against.
BSJ going to be able to eliminate one of those creeps, but taking a lot of damage, as you mentioned, with that level 4 Ion Shell ticking away. BSJ's been able to find his farm, though, and is sitting second overall on that net worth. And with the slight buff to Battle Fury, 50 gold less, he should be able to get it in a very reasonable timing.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure if I like the move coming out from USA to leave E-skills so alone inside this mid lane. I thought the Shadow Fiend might be able to crush the Tiny a little bit more, maybe with a rotation in from the supports, but the Dazzle and Jakiro, just by the nature of their heroes, aren't very good at killing off the Tiny, really. They don't have a great gap closer early on, and no points in Ice Path yet. Jakiro is going to go for a 2-0-2 build and probably commit to that fully, which will allow them to take down towers pretty effectively.
Yeah, it helps with the push, but definitely no slouches against the push for the Radiant side. I mean, they got the double Ion Shell, and they've got the Gyrocopter, who deals very well with waves coming through. Tiny can clean them up as well, so I don't know if not having the disable is really the right choice for Frozen here. We'll see if it ends up paying off, but so far, I mean, the early game, a couple of kills found by Sweden, but by no means are they creating a huge gap here. In mid lane, we're going to see Slayer jump back towards mid. He's got his treads ready for him in base. Irony behind him, but no one going to show their face quite yet. There is a Dire Observer ward up on the hills. Probably spotted Dazzle here, and now 2 supports from Sweden side are smoked up behind E-skill, looking for probably a toss-in on the Ogre into a Fire Blast.
Definitely could net some kills for the Swedish side. Tiny is only about 500 gold behind that of the Shadow Fiend, and that 500 gold translates into Basilius. It's inside the... Oh, Toss going to miss. That was on a creep instead of on the Ogre. Are they still going to look for this dive? They might. You're not going to be thrown out into Irony, but they're not going to fully commit. That was just a bit awkward. I think he expected to have an Ogre hand grenade instead of a lane creep.
Yeah, it probably would have been a kill if it lands as well with Steph style, but they will be able to pressure the tower here, and there's not going to be an immediate rotation from the Radiant side. Tiny backing off, looking top. They won't be able to bring it down with the SF returning mid. Lucaran has popped his sprint, and their TPs are going to come through as well. Krilly doing a lot of damage as Rocket Barrage is going to bring him down. BSJ comes in, but he's right into the face of Isco with the Rocket Barrage. Toss up in the air. 2 kills for Sweden's side, and Lokarn perhaps jumping a little forward a little too brazenly there with his sprint up. Takes a lot of damage before E-Skill even rotates in. And them seeing him mid maybe thought that he wasn't going to be able to join the fray. But very nice movement from Sweden. 5-0, 10 minutes in.
I'm really surprised that the Slaughter ends up sticking around. The call down did connect onto Creep Wave and onto the Slaughter before that all happened, and was very low because of it. Even though he probably felt a little bit better because call down was on CD and they didn't have that for it, he didn't expect the Tiny rotation. Tiny's going to back off for the drums. I had mixed feelings about this. I think he's doing well enough to make it work, however. I personally like getting the blink before committing towards any other items, but he's so very fast moving around this map, and the stats are going to mean that Tiny is incredibly tanky, although still the armor issue is going to be one that increases as the game goes by until he picks up something like an Assault Cuirass. With only 3 base armor, Presence of the Dark Lord, once it is leveled up for Slayer, will completely take that away, and then some, then you have Slaughter Amp on top. It gets pretty nasty for Tiny.
I gotta agree with you though. I mean, my first impression on seeing the buff to the intelligence was that you go blink first and kind of the ganker style Tiny, and usually drums were picked up in part to solve the mana issues on the Tiny. But mid lane, they're gonna jump out with the poison touch. Not gonna have nearly enough to kill him off, as you mentioned, sitting on 1500 HP at this point. But yeah, I mean, maybe the buff to the drums are attractive enough for E-Skill to pick that up. So he's gonna continue to farm. He'll catch a raise mid lane. But should be just fine, and gonna deliver back his bottle on the courier and should be able to regen up. 12-minute rune spawning. It's a double damage bottom, and Frigolite is camping it, giving it over to that Tiny. So definitely some kill potential here once he picks that up. Wyvern though, not level 6 just yet, so toss into Winter's Curse. Not quite there for the dire side.
Yeah, we're just Winter's Curse and a Tiny walk-in for the Avalanche toss combination in its entirety. Still Tiny solo kill potential right now, should he get on top of an enemy hero, is pretty much every single hero on the enemy side, unless they have a Grave on them, as the combo is going out. But with more than 300 damage for his right-click with the DD rune, it gets nasty, and it looks like he's going to find himself a Jakiro. Frozen's going to walk right into the Rock Band, Avalanche going to miss, and Frozen will be able to back off. A close call.
He does bait the double damage as well, so that's kind of a big win for the Radiant side that he survives there. Wouldn't have been the biggest kill, but still gives Tiny momentum. And currently sitting 25 or so CS behind the SF. He's going to need some kills, but he runs forward with the Avatar's combo. One right click, and he will bring down the Jakiro, and he's going to look to bring down Iron. He doesn't even get the Grave off as well. That double damage doing work, and the drums giving him enough to close the distance there, so perhaps paying off, although the blink would have effectively done the same thing.
My mouse is not working with me right now for game work. Apologies there, but regardless, 7-0, Sweden's start is a very fast one. Despite having a very farm Shadow Fiend of the Radiant team, I'm not sure if it's going to be enough. They don't have somebody to set up for this SF or allow him to get his damage off throughout these team fights. And although Mechanism is great, I believe the mechanism up on the Darkseer is going to be, at the same time. In fact, Darkseer got his a little bit faster, so that advantage isn't actually much of an advantage, but more just an equalizing factor. Looking for the stun in mid on E-Skills. He's a little too fast, so chase forward with BSJ. They just don't quite have the range of initiation to catch this Tiny whole turn for the Avatos, going to land on Lokarn as well as on a BSJ. The stun is not going to connect coming out from the Slaughter. E-Skills still trying to run out. He has the amplified damage, taking quite a lot from the right click. Squirrely comes in from the sideline. The Dazzle will be able to shallow Grave. Will that save his life? It will, at least for now. Darkseer's running forward, has 2 points up in the vacuum. Will land that squarely on the Slayer. The Courier is just casually standing there, but nobody's going to kill that off. Rocket Brush straight into Slayer is going to kill him off with the Death Requiem. Drops Crilly as well as Eris Loco low, but they won't be able to finish the job, and with Mechanism will be back up at sustainable amounts of HP. Tier 1 tower mid will fall immediately after the fact, and no Couriers were harmed in that last fight.
I feel like that was a bit of a miscommunication from the United States side. I mean, Gyrocopter came in behind the full 5-man lineup and was trying to take out the Dazzle, and everyone else was trying to chase down the Tiny, who had a drum charge popped, and they really couldn't close the distance with them being hit by the Splinter Blast. I feel like if they all just turn around after popping that mech and focus on the Gyrocopter, they get a clean kill and can maybe translate it into even better engagement. But either way, they continue to give chase, and it forces the Dazzle off to the west. They get split up and brought down, and it's a big kill on the Shadow Fiend, as well as you mentioned, that tier 1 tower. So 8-0, 15 minutes in, and almost a 10k net worth lead now for the dire side.
Yeah, that's a scary advantage for them to have.
Mid lane.
Slaughter right now, yeah, going to jump. The Winter's Curse will be dropped onto him. Lokarn is going to be smacked down by the Ogre, although with stick charges and a crush, he's going to try to sprint out of there alive. And it looks like Lokarn has found himself an avenue to safety, although only just. Slaughter can't find any openings really aggressively, and at this point, that's about as good as he can hope. Just survive while he's getting levels. Up towards top, Slayer's pushing out alone. The Gyrocopter's around the corner with the call down, going to connect squarely onto the Shadow Fiend. Full Rock Brush is there. He'll unwind the Requiem. Is going to do a good amount of damage, but not near enough. The mechanism will sustain through all of that, and it looks like they didn't get Requiemed in the first place with a secondary Rocket Barrage. 9-0 is our kill score, and it looks like Team USA are starting to fall apart. The Tiny Shadow Blade down towards bottom, looking for BSJ. The Abatos isn't going to connect onto the Anti-Mage. Will the right click be enough? E-Skills might have been able to turn around for that one, but BSJ was there with the blink, and was just entertaining the fact that maybe they could have killed the Tiny, but E-Skills right now is so hard to bring down. Now that they know that Shadow Blade, excuse me, is there for E-Skills, it might be a little bit harder for him to pull off those kills, but if that Abatos actually was on the Anti-Mage instead of on a creep, that could have been absolutely disastrous.
Would have killed him off for sure, I believe. But BSJ luckily surviving there. Maybe a little bit of a silver lining after their SF goes down top. But yeah, this mech on the Darks here has been really essential thus far for the Dire, saving them in a couple engagements. But yeah, that Requiem, only 25 souls at the time after just dying in the mid lane. So really not super effective. And yeah, taking complete control of the game, it seems, Sweden is. Even BSJ has gone back for this headdress before completing up that Battle Fury. And he still needs another 1,400 gold before picking up the B Fury. So it's going to be considerably late on this Anti-Mage.
And even if he gets this Battle Fury, I'm not sure if he's going to feel comfortable pushing out on the map. The supports aren't rich enough, or really to have hardly any gold between them to have sentries everywhere. They do have one set on the Jakiro and a smoke flying out for the Dazzle, but that's about it. And now this hasted Tiny is going to get the Abatos, this time on the Anti-Mage, and it'll get him an easy kill and a creep wave too. E-Skills is priming up for a very scary game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, and BSJ just can't be this far out in the lanes, especially up against this Shadow Blade from E-Skill. So luckily, or, fortunately, he has a haste rune there as well to close the distance. But either way, top lane, Ice Path is going to whiff on Terrace Loco. They do get the crush off, though, and with the amp damage, they should be able to bring him down, despite him having the mech. Surge still down for another 3 seconds, but while doing a little bit of damage to Lokarn with that sprint up, and the cooldown should kill him off here, and it does do so. Krilly looking to jump forward for some more, but now Slayer is there. Gyrocopter needs to be a little bit careful. Only one raise is going to connect, however, and the Ice Path also going to whiff once again. Krilly going to be able to make it out scot-free here. Mech going to be popped by the Radiant side, and they're going to have to back off. TPs were inbound to the tier 1 from the Dire, but they're going to be cancelled. Krilly going to be just fine to farm up this wave by his lonesome.
Goes to show how far ahead Sweden are. The Gyrocopter can go in 1v3 and get away with it. He was playing with fire a bit, but that's not something that should be happening in a normal game of Dota. Right now, their advantage is starting to become a little bit obscene, but with every pickoff, like the one in the Darks here, the Radiant team are going to get a significant advantage. USA get a lot, and if nothing else, it gets them on the board, and at least they feel like they've gotten something instead of sitting on a 0-11s, or that first kill does mean a lot.
Yeah, they placed a nice deep Observer Ward in the Radiant jungle as well, so that Shadow Blade for E-Skill probably going to be even a little more effective with his aggressive vision. Lokarn poking his head out bot lane, and they do have a sentry on the ground though, so he watched E-Skill walk in there briefly to the lane and was able to sprint out.
E-Skill's attack speed at this point is pretty absurd. The Bloodlust is only level 1, but even with just level 1 Bloodlust, Shadow Blade, Power Treads, Drums, all offering to help that out. This doesn't look like a Tiny with 2 points in a grow. He's punching really fast and really hard. Although Aghanim Scepter isn't up yet for E-Skills, maybe that's going to be his next pickup, or straight for the Assault Cuirass doesn't seem like a bad option either.
Yeah, something I just noticed on the Slardar, unfortunately, perhaps panic buying before death, trying to waste his gold so that he doesn't lose too much. He bought a Staff of Wizardry, so it looks like it's going to be a 4-staff over the Blink at this point. Just really wasn't able to accrue enough gold at once for that Blink, but with a Pack Leader Aura on the Alpha Wolf and the Medallion onto the Wyvern, of course half is effective, but still good for pushing bringing Roche down. Krilly and the Wyvern, as well as E-Skill, going to jump into the pit and going to be able to take this Roche uncontested.
Yeah, this should be a pretty easy Roshan for them. Looks like they'll get the second life. Maybe the E-Skills is going to pop his wand, drop his wand, and then pick up an HC Immortal. This will allow the Tiny to play very aggressively, and should he have an Aghanim Scepter, and he's only about 1,400 gold till he has that completed, should he want to pick that up as his next item, he'll be doing so much to these towers if unanswered. Good news for the Radiant team is they're getting very close to the Anti-Mage Battle Fury. Only 400 until Banana Slam Jam has that up and running, but an Anti-Mage at this point isn't actually that scary unless he can start accruing an advantage over the enemy team instead of just reaching parity. Looking for the Avatos, going to miss onto Slayer, turning around for some damage onto E-Skills, but won't end up being lethal. Ice Path will connect onto Steph Style, but it looks like that's mostly just to disengage, and they will do just that.
Yeah, Deep Ward gonna see the TP rotations for the raid inside, so they will be able to make it out there safely. And as you mentioned, I mean, they're gonna need a lot more of this type of vision for BSJ to be out in the lanes. Called down though by the Ancients, it's gonna land onto the Jakiro, and he's still gonna survive. But the Winter's Curse though, gonna keep BSJ at bay. The Requiem on the periphery is able to bring down the Gyrocopter, but still a 2-for-1. BSJ goes down again just before picking up his Battle Fury, unable to buy out that broadsword. And Nisko is going to find Slayer as well. He's going to go in for the toss, but the Crush is going to hit, and he has the amp damage up. This is a big kill if they find it. Just the Aegis for now. Can they stick around? It doesn't seem so. The Darks here going to be rotating in with Steph Style. And the Vacuum not going to find the SF or the Dazzle. Irony will be able to TP out, luckily for him. And overall, the Gyro does go down. It is worth quite a bit, but still advantage for the Dire side.
Yeah, 2-13. The gold is going to be really nice on the Shadow Fiend, and it is very good that he's able to keep so close when it comes to net worth with the enemy heroes, but they have 2 farmed carries on the Dire's side. Both Krilly and E-Skills are absolutely stacked, although they haven't been fighting together too much, and have mostly been going for those pickoffs. Should they group up and look for a big team fight, Dire have such an advantage. Lucian Aegis is going to slow things down, and that's kind of what USA need to look to do right now to get this anti-mage to a point where he can actually fight. We saw BSJ in a situation where, should he have had, I don't know, ideally like a Vlad's Yasha on top of a Battle Fury, maybe he was able to take a couple of those kills, and maybe he was able to turn, or maybe if his supports had something else to help, like a Force Staff or anything really. Smoke by Irony, it's going to be popped immediately by Krilly. There's a call down onto the ground. Irony has a Grave, but no TP. Grave will delay this kill, but it's only going to do that as Irony is chased down by the Gyrocopter. Looking for the neutral, denies a little too far away, and Gyrocopter will shoot him down. Tiny looking up top.
Yeah, he's still going to jump forward and doesn't want to find Lakarn right underneath the tower, even with the Dazzle dead. BSJ nearby as well, so a little bit of a conservative play from the Tiny, but he is very close to Aghanim, so doesn't want to be losing gold right now.
Yeah, Aghanim's Scepter, he has 2 components on the career now and is less than 300 gold till he has that third and final component for it. Tiny hasn't been as explosive as I thought he would be. E-Skills is sitting on 301. This is by no means a bad KD, but E-Skills has mostly been getting his gold from farming in lanes, and I suppose that's just as good as killing off enemy heroes. It'll work out for him reasonably well.
Yeah, Yule Scepter is quite a ways away for Frozen's Jakiro at this point. Force Staff, though, has come out for Lokarn. Of course, not as good as the Blink Dagger on the Slardar, but will provide him some extra mobility and maybe even defensive capability as well. He's going to be caught out, though, it seems. No Sentry Ward on the ground for the Radiant, and Iska will be able to find him with the Avatos, bring him down with relative ease. They're going to chase forward. Steph Style will be in range for the Fire Blast onto Frozen. He's going to Bloodlust himself up. Ice Path is going to connect onto him, but Iska with just a couple of whacks brings him down with relative ease. And why not throw out a Macro Pyre as you're brought down. 30 seconds on the sidelines for both those heroes. And BSJ trying to commit some split push, but Krilly, already anticipating that, is sitting up in the top lane, pushing out the wave. And this tier 2 bottom lane seems to be going down very easily from the Radiant side. And they still have the Glyph, but definitely going to want to save it for high ground at this point.
I'm finding it difficult to look for an avenue for USA to come back into this game. It kind of has to be the anti-mage to get the farm, but I don't see how they're able to really secure that space in the map for him. Although I can understand Slardar going for this Force Staff, it is a lot less desirable to have a Force Staff into Crush than a Blink into Crush. The difference really is night and day, although I think he probably wouldn't have had the gold for the Blink should he have not picked up those components.
So at this point, the Dire side completely occupying the Radiant side of the map, and BSJ, understandably so, sitting mostly in the Dire jungle trying to find farm. But as you mentioned, he's a long way from relevance, even after picking up that Battle Fury. Slayer, having to farm lanes and leaving the jungle to the BSJ is a little bit vulnerable to a gank. He's going to be caught. No, he'll actually be able to walk out of the radius of that call down and should be able to bring down this tower, but the Glyph will be there, so they'll be able to deny it. Steph Style, though, able to haste himself away. Should be able to get away. On the south side, though, E-Skill waiting for him with the right click. He has a BKB. He won't be able to use it in time. And he's going to be brought down. So once again, Sweden just moving a little bit better than the US. Not sure if they got that tower deny off there, but not sure if it really matters much. It was destroyed by the Radiant, so they do get the glyph and deny the gold from the SF, and they end up killing him off as well. Mid lane, smoke up from Lokarn and Irony's Dazzle, but doubt they're going to be able to find anything without their Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I think it's a move that they kind of have to go for, but as you said, Shadow Fiend needs to be involved in pretty much every kill for USA, or else they just don't have the damage to bring down these targets. Bloodlust, I believe, is now nearly maxed out for the Ogre Magi. He has 3 points up into it, and E-Skills is going plunked on top of the high ground. Assault Kyros will be the next order of business for the Tiny. He has the 2 components you can buy at your shop. But even without it, it's still doing so much damage to these towers. That's going to be the tier 3 down with no contention coming out from the Radiant team, because they really can't. Tossing the Gyrocopter is going to throw him back towards the one standing creep wave, and now they might be able to look for the melee barracks. But Shadow Fiend's up, so they are going to respect that 10-second BKB mech Shadow Fiend. He is still very threatening.
Yeah, early laner racks, though, or at least the ranged racks coming out for the Dire side, is going to mean they're going to be able to continue to choke the Radiant side into their map, and BSJ has been punished a couple of times for trying to farm elsewhere. So things looking very grim for the US side of things, and it seems like really the Dire are only willing to continue to keep up the pressure. Still at least a minute until Roche spawns here, so probably the next objective for the Dire, and then they look to break high ground with all these tier 2s, except for the one in mid down.
Solar Crest is up for the Winter Wyvern. The net worth on these supports coming out from the Swedish side is one of the big deciding factors, although granted, Anti-Mage and Shadow Fiend are behind that of the Tiny and the Gyrocopter. The supports of the Radiant team have almost nothing. You have a Medallion up on the Dazzle, that's nice. You have the makings of an Urn for Jakiro, although that's not going to be built for a long time. But compare that to the completed Solar and Ogre Magi now with an almost Ags, less than 500 gold till he has that done. Stepstyle should be able to farm that up in the next minute or so inside mid lane. Lokarn's going to be looking for an initiation angle. He has a Force Half Crush, is going to connect into Eris Loco, but the follow-up, is it going to be there? They have an Ice Pass, a lot of minus armor and plus armor applied to Eris Loco. He has 4 on his status bar right now. But no, they won't be able to get that kill. It's so hard to bring down this Darkseer. He has Shiva's Guard mechanism after all. Still, they're able to put him into the minus amounts when it comes to armor, but they need every amount of damage they can get.
Yeah, he's still looking for a pick here. Top lane as well. BSJ gonna blink near him, and he's gonna get brought down with relative ease. And this is only hurting the Radiant side further. Still nothing beyond that Vlad's Battle Fury for BSJ, and this will probably sound the high ground push, if not the actual GG call from the Radiant. I don't know. We'll see if the admin ends the game, but
there is no admin.
Yeah, GG. All right.
All right.
GG is called. Game 1, and probably an insurmountable advantage. A little surprising to see them not actually fight it out high ground, but either way, yeah, things definitely looked very grim for the Radiant.
An anticlimactic ending to game number 1 of USA versus Sweden, but that's not all we're going to have here on ProDota EN tonight. Game number 2 will be coming up shortly, but that was just a very unfortunate start. It really feels like they didn't respect the Tiny all that much. They gave him a lot more space than I think they needed to, and even though Dazzle Jakiro, the idea is definitely there, they synergize nicely with their team, they don't do anything when it comes to shutting down the enemy side and looking for aggressive rotations. And once map control is had for Sweden, there really was no taking it away. So game number 2, hopefully for USA, they'll be able to pull out something a little bit different. We'll move on to that game in just a minute. Shout out to the sponsors, esportgaming.com, G2A, Dota 2 Lounge, Hitbox, and Gosu Gamers. I'm Granite Speed, joined by More Rage, please, and we'll be back to you in just a second.